Welcome back, everyone. And I'm happy to say hi to my colleague, Jay Bonham,
Hi.
here to talk about sending your kid off to college, kind of, but really it's specifically about move-in day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And I set this up for people, but you've already done this once and you're about to do it again, correct?
You're absolutely right. And as I think I told you earlier, I don't certainly consider myself an expert, but certainly I've done it before. And so we're about to do it again. I did it 4 years ago when my oldest son, we dropped him off to college. And then very soon we're about to send our youngest off as well. So it's an exciting time in our household.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm just kind of curious about, like, how do you see the parent role is changing? I mean, this is a real
Yeah,
demarcation, right? Of sort of, I mean, I actually still remember when my mom not just took me to college, but when she left, the day that she left,
right.
and said goodbye to me. And I think I cried, and which she said really surprised her because I was a pretty independent kid, but it was just felt sort of dramatic that she was leaving me behind, even though I was very excited to go to the college I went to. And so and had a wonderful time, right?
Yeah,
but
of course.
um but so what do you think is, yeah, let's talk about the significance of that moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge moment. I mean, of course, for the student, and that should be, of course, the center of the attention. But it's a big moment for the parents too, because they've got this transition going on themselves. One way that I look at it is that the parent's role is really changing from being the manager of their kids' lives to becoming the consultant. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is, for when our kids were younger, we were there helping to support them and helping to move them on to the different activities, making sure their academics were in good shape, and just being there sort of 24/7. But now when they're off to college, you're not going to have the same type of role. And you shouldn't. I mean, the student should really be taking control and making the most of the experience that they're going to be at in college. And so, but certainly your role doesn't end. I mean, a role as
Hmm.
a parent never ends. But I think when it goes to college, you should be more in that consulting area where if your student has or if your kid has some questions, they should reach out to you, of course, but they should be the ones talking with their teacher professors, talking with their advisors. I mean, finding ways to get involved in the college community. And so I think if parents can sort of think of it that way as sort of changing from that manager to the consultant, I think that's one way in which it's going to help them with that transition.
Right, they're not the one that's going to talk to faculty. In fact, some
Right.
faculty won't talk to parents. I mean, there's even privacy laws
Yep.
about that, where parents would have to waive um
Hmm.
waive some privacy. So there's
Right.
even like a legal barrier. Not that that's like the most important aspect of it, but
Mhm.
I really like that notion of being the consultant. And I would actually hope that parents would kind of start practicing that a little bit ahead
Yes.
of time. But that is the important moment when it really has to happen.
Hmm.
What are some of
Yeah.
the nuts of, oh, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, no, no. I was just going to say, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, hopefully this has already started when, I mean, as students are, whatever types of, I mean, pre-college stuff they have to do, whether it's helping setting up classes or learning about like different activities they can get involved with. I mean, at that point, the student should be taking over and seeing this transition. But then certainly once they go to the school, it becomes sort of 100%, and the student should be, I mean, leading the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to be a college counselor. I worked in admissions, obviously, but I was
Mhm.
a college counselor at a high school. And I remember a student of mine who was a junior in AP history, and her mother would stay up with her every night until she finished her homework. And she said, "Well, I'm not getting enough sleep." And I thought, "Why are you staying up with your daughter?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
you can just
yes,
go to bed." She doesn't
yes.
need to, she doesn't, I mean, it wasn't my place to parent, but I thought, really what I thought was, well, what are you going to do when she goes to college? Is she going to sit on Zoom with you? I mean, it was just,
Right.
it was a very, I
Mhm.
don't know. It's not that I'm in a place to critique anybody's parenting, and I understand the anxiety, but like,
Oh yeah.
let's like think about what the next step is that's coming up, and how to prepare for it,
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, my wife, she used to work in student affairs, and she every August when the parents would come and drop off their kids, she would meet with the parents and give them sort of a preview of what their kids are going to be going through for the year. But at the end, she would make the parents all repeat after her, and my wife would say, "Okay, well, first, I'm sorry, let me couch this that things are going to happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be your child is going to run into issues in college. Hopefully, they'll be very minor, but they're going to be things that they're going to run into that they might need that they're going to need to navigate. And so
Mm-hmm.
instead of the parents hopefully going in, I mean, going in there and navigating it for the student, it should be the student who takes control. And what she would do is she would say, "Okay, parents, repeat after me," and you would say this to your child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who at college, and to insert whatever name, can help you with that?
Mm-hmm.
And she would say, okay, people repeat after me. Who at college blank can help you with that? And it just sort of sets the stage that it is the student who should be figuring out, do they need to talk to the registrar's office or about a class, or should they go and meet with their professor? Or if they're having trouble with roommates, I mean, how do they manage that? But again, just for the parent to think that, okay, son, who should you be contacting rather than me? I don't want to be doing that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a good distinction to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really important distinction. And it doesn't mean that you're not there for them, because you
No.
are saying you're helping talk them through it,
Yep.
and if they need to cry to somebody or vent to somebody, you're there
Yep.
for that as well. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
And I have to say that, I mean, we're seeing that in our own family. We're seeing that for our older son. He's about to move to a new city to start his job. He's doing it on his own because
Mm-hmm.
like he feels as though, well, one, he has to, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's his responsibility. But I think we've sort of taught him these mechanisms that to support himself. And it sort of started with the drop off at college. And now we're seeing it certainly as he's now going off to his first job and in his career. It makes a big difference. And I think it's going to help those young adults become adults down the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what about the nuts and bolts of the
Yeah,
drop off? Like, what are some things for parents to think about as they like just are planning the day or planning the few
right,
days that they'll be there?
right. I mean, uh, a couple things certainly come to mind. One is that you want your child to lead it. You don't want to go into the dorm room and start unpacking their things and putting things where you think they should go, and like where the posters should go, or where the pillows, whatever they might be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's where your child is going to be living, and so you want them to sort of um, uh, be in charge of that. Another suggestion I had from a friend is that when you're setting up the room, keep the door open, because there'll be other kids and other families that are in your hall that are setting up their own dorm rooms. And so it sort of makes it more inviting, so that your son or daughter can start to meet other kids in their dorm, and also for the parents to sort of meet each other as well. Um, Another thing that we've tried to do also is sort of do like the big sort of goodbyes, like before you actually like are that everything's set up and you're leaving, because at that point everyone's tired. Your child is going to be going off to their pre-orientation programs, or I mean, orientation programs. And so to have like this, I don't know, magical moment where you're saying goodbye, it can be disappointing for some families. And so
Mm-hmm.
I always tell families, you should do that like before the actual day, like really have that conversation and talk with your child and just sort of tell them how proud you are. And but I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to the actual, like, the logistics of the day, get it done. I mean, wish them good luck. And the reality is that, I mean, you're going to talk with them. I mean, it's not like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying goodbye forever. And so, but I think you also want to set it up so that your child feels as though he or she is in their own room, and are ready to meet people and move forward.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I like to think about it is don't be the last parent on campus,
Yes.
or among the roommates.
Right.
So my
Right.
roommate, I had two roommates actually, and one of them, the mom just stuck around way past when the parents were
Yeah.
supposed to be there. And my roommate was like, I don't know, I'm so sorry. I don't know
Yeah.
when she's gonna leave. So make
So
that your goal.
exactly. I mean, and you want to make sure that they're set up and have the things, and I don't know, to be honest, in this day and age, like, don't fret over the fact if you forgot something, because in this Amazon world or Target, I mean, there's always ways you can get things you forgot or might be missing. And so you don't want to stress over those things because it's a stressful time. I mean, your child is moving on to a new chapter in his or her life. Uh, and if for some reason they forgot the power cord, you can solve that.
Yeah,
That can
this
easily
like
be solved.
the and the most rural location, there is at least going to be a bookstore on the campus
Yes.
where you
Yes.
can get the necessities. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And the other thing is that, I mean, certainly from just a pure like logistics, I mean, many times the dorm room that they're moving into is going to be smaller than their current room. And so don't feel as though you have to bring everything, or especially like a closet, like don't feel as though you have to bring all your clothes at once. I mean, we ended up, I know for our older son, like bringing some things back with us just because he ran out of room, and uh, so that's the other thing, is that you want to sort of plan that out. And also nowadays, like all the dorms are many times online, so you can see the dimensions of like the closets and how much, I mean, shelving they have. And so that can really help families to sort of figure out how much stuff they should be bringing.
I think also just sentimentally, I mean, I remember this was actually a different roommate. She brought her entire stuffed animal collection, which was kind
Yeah.
of an interesting choice. And listen, I had a stuffed animal and I did bring one,
Yeah. Right.
but so bring a couple things because you're away from home and you will be homesick, but you don't need to recreate home, because part of the goal, I think,
Yes.
is starting something new and exciting. And she took them all back with her at Christmas except for like one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she
Right.
sort of realized that this was a little, I think she ended up being embarrassed by it, which was not the point. I mean, I'm not saying that she should have been, because people cope with things in their own way,
Right.
and in their own time. But it was kind of, to me, such a like concrete manifestation of her like investing herself in college.
Yeah.
And she even said that it took her sort of the first semester to figure out she was in the right place. And it
Hmm.
was like the second she did that, she's like, okay, I'm taking all these stuffed animals back home. I'm not ready to get rid of them, but they're not going to be here with me in college anymore. I'm going to invest myself. It's going to be new stuff here.
Yes.
So, which was
Yes.
kind
No,
of
that's it.
exciting.
It is. It's an exciting time, and certainly you do want them to bring some part of their home or some part of, I mean, the family to remember, and just to have that sort of soft and that safety net as they're, I mean, looking at those pictures or the stuffed animal, whatever it might be. But you're right. I mean, these aren't huge rooms, and so you want to manage it, and make sure that that because this is going to be their home away from home for at least for the first year, and you want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they're comfortable with that.
Yeah. And don't let them get hung up. I've heard about like an Instagram phenomenon where people like post the perfect dorm room or something. Like, please encourage
Yes.
them not to do that. Don't spend all your money on the dorm room. Your tuition bills are going to be high enough, I think.
Right. Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know this is maybe a little gendered, but my boys, they don't really care. I mean, they're not going to be, but I know that is very important for some people. And so, but you're right. You don't want to get caught up on that, be caught up in that kind of stress, because college is going to be stressful enough.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to get our younger son to take a few more things because he's very simplistic in the way that
Right.
which is fine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that's his personality, and
Right.
you just want to make sure that the dorm room reflects that. But you also have to, I mean, he has a roommate, so he also needs to make sure that that he's communicating with his roommate, which he has. I mean, they've decided like who's bringing like what sort of appliances. I mean, so his roommate's going to bring the mini fridge, and
Mm-hmm.
our son's bringing like an extra monitor, and so that's, I think, also important for families to make sure that the student is communicating with their future roommates and making sure that they don't end up with two refrigerators in the room,
Mm-hmm.
or three fans. And I think that can help to avoid conflicts even before the start of the semester.
Yeah, who's bringing the coffee percolator or the French
Yeah,
press or whatever it might be? Share things for sure.
right,
So,
right.
yeah. So it's kind of speaking of that, I'm kind of curious, just from your personal perspective, if you're comfortable, like what was the hardest thing about the day? The first
Oh,
drop off day.
well, I think the first drop off, the hardest part for us was the 4 flights of stairs that we had to walk up
Right.
to. So I mean, just because his dorm room, I mean, he was on a higher level, but no, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's an emotional, I mean, it's an emotional time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, I mean, as much as I think my wife and I try to be prepared for it, I mean, it takes a lot out of you. And so, um, but it's an exciting time. Like, again, like we knew that both for our older son, our younger son, they're both in the right place for the right place for themselves. Um, and as a parent, that's what you want. And so, but yeah, that's what was tough. I think just realizing that, I mean, they're moving on to another chapter, uh, but like the stress of getting everything into the dorm room, it's okay. I mean, it's just you deal with it. Um, but yeah, just making sure that I wasn't as prepared. I think in some ways, since this is our second and last child, I mean, I think in some ways this will be a little bit harder because my wife and I are now going to be empty nesters, and so
Mm-hmm.
we're moving on ourselves into a new phase. But we're, I mean, really excited for him, and it's going to be a great experience, and hopefully for other families that are going to be in the same position as we are. That's, I mean, it's going to be tough, but you're going to get through it, and your child's going to be in a great position, um, and just be able to be happy for them, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be an emotional and an emotional time.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking too that it might, like, I think with my mom, and this was a different age, we made a plan that we would talk on Sunday nights.
Yes,
You know,
we
I
did.
mean,
I did.
that's
Yep.
pre-cell phones. That's
Yes.
how old I
Right. Right.
am. But it still seems like a good idea, to kind of just say we're not always going to be available to each other. When my students in
Yes.
class, they shouldn't be texting me. So I'm going
Yep.
to respect those kinds of limits. So I know there's the emotional challenge, but and I'm not trying to, but I feel like this is part of that, right? Like some parents want their students to constantly be in touch. And I've talked to friends of mine, and one friend said, my daughter never has time to talk to me. And I said, I know that this sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing.
Yes.
If she, as long as she sounds good, but she's busy, that actually shows that college is being exactly what it should be.
Yes, yes. I would be more worried if that student was contacting their parent every day or a couple times a week. I mean, I think if you go a couple days without hearing from your child, that's a good thing. I mean, that means
Mm-hmm.
they're busy. It means that they're getting involved. But yes, I think it's still important to check in and see how things are going. I would maybe during the orientation period try to give them a couple days to let them get their bearings and start meeting friends and just getting acclimated to the university. But certainly set up a time that you guys can check in, and that will make it a great experience for you to learn about what they're doing, and also good for the student to hear from their parents too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, great. Any last closing comments? Anything that we haven't covered, Jay, or do you think that's pretty good for now?
I don't think so. I just, I mean, it's it's an exciting time, and I think it is stressful, but I think the parents just need to realize that this is an exciting time for their child, and you just want to be as supportive as possible, and and make sure that the move goes as smoothly as possible as well, and they'll have a great start to their college experience.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Sally, it's
And
my pleasure.
absolutely. And when we return, we'll be talking with Mary Soo Yoon about the high school college application program Naviance.